everybody, and welcome back to the CSUF Department of Kinesiology Road to DPT video series, where we are answering some of your most commonly asked questions about the journey to become a DPT. In this video, it will be our second part of our prerequisites, where we will talk about the options for completing many of these prerequisites, which again can get a little bit overwhelming, so we want to add some clarity to this situation. Let's get started. Now, as you've seen in the last video, there are many prerequisite classes that you may have to organize and navigate as you prepare your application for PT school. There are many ways that you can complete these prerequisite classes and do so in a way that fits best for your life situation, your schedule, your finances, etc. So please don't think that you are stuck with one course and that it is going to take you 10 years to get these prerequisite classes done because there's only one option. We're here to tell you that there are many ways that you can go about completing this. The helpful thing is that most prerequisites, with the exception of a few, are lower division courses, meaning they don't necessarily have to be done at a four-year institution. They should be offered at many different places. And many of these lower division courses that are prerequisites include your general science series, so your biology series, chemistry, physics, anatomy, phys, statistics, psychology, etc. usually don't have to be done in a four-year setting. So the first option that you have is to complete all of your prerequisites at Cal State Fullerton. All prerequisite classes are offered at Cal State Fullerton since it is a four-year institution. So like I said, you don't need to do these at a four-year, but because you're already at one as a student of Cal State Fullerton, all of these options are open to you. Many students may try to build in their prerequisite classes into their GE and/or kinesiology requirements, which we did talk about in a previous video in terms of planning your basic timeline. So for instance, again, you may take the first semester of biology or chemistry as your B1 and B2 requirements, with one of those labs as B3, and then maybe you declare clinical movement concentration because one of the requirements for clinical movement is to have the year-long anatomy physiology series with labs, meaning you finish this as part of your kinesiology degree requirements, but you also are able to complete that prerequisite without going outside of your degree. Remember that each general science requirement is a series, which requires an entire year of study. You don't necessarily want to load all of your classes in 1 year, meaning you don't want to spend an entire year doing fall semester being the first series of bio, the first series of chemistry, the first series of physics, loading all of these things into one semester, and then have to do it all again the next semester with the second series. So it's very important, if you are deciding to build your prerequisites into your degree, that you give yourself a little space, or you're able to plan accordingly, balancing what are your other kinesiology degree requirements and what classes do you want to take per semester, balancing that with the classes that you are using for your prerequisites for PT school, because this can easily get very stressful and very overwhelming if you're trying to balance, let's say, biomechanics, movement anatomy, and chemistry. That can be a very heavy schedule. We want to make sure that we are doing this, again, in the best efficient way for you. Another option is to take a fifth year at Cal State Fullerton in order to take one or two prereqs per semester alongside your kines coursework, which may also be advantageous for financial aid because you will still get your FAFSA. You might be able to schedule it a little bit easier, and again, it might be a little bit more manageable instead of loading all of those classes in at once. Now, some of the cons of this option of staying at Cal State Fullerton to do all of your prerequisites include, first of all, that you may have delayed graduation. As you all know, your bachelor's degree in kinesiology requires 120 units, which spread out over 4 years is approximately 30 units a year, 15 units a semester, in order to graduate on time in 4 years. We tend to think that this is quite manageable, but when you take into account the fact that prerequisites may add an extra 40 units or so, this can add up to additional 1 or 2 years that you might need, depending on the loads, the class loads that you can handle, and whether or not you do summer, winter, intersession, etc., class availability. This may add 1, 2, maybe even 3 years onto your bachelor's degree, meaning that it is very unlikely you'll be able to do this in 4 years. This may be more expensive, so while one of the pros is that you continue to get financial aid as a full-time student, understand that if you are not having your tuition fully covered by FAFSA or by any sort of scholarship, that at Cal State Fullerton, our fee schedule is not based on per unit like it is at a community college. We pay 0 to 6 or to be 9 or 12 units full time, depending on your class standing, which means that overall the price tag is going to be heftier than it would be for maybe a community college or a different option. Again, I reiterate that many of these courses, biology, chemistry, physics, a lot of these science courses, are year-long series, but they also may require introductory courses before you get to the general series, meaning that it's a total of 3 semesters to finish one requirement. For instance, Chemistry 120 A and B, which is your general chemistry series, requires Chemistry 115 as an introductory course before you can even enter the class. So I would highly encourage everybody to explore possible options for maybe placement exams, which can help you bypass the introductory course and make sure that you can get the year-long series done in a year and not taking an extra semester to get additional prereqs done for your prereq. The second option that we have is going to a community college or your local JC. Again, most of the prerequisite courses that you need for PT school are going to be lower division, meaning that many community colleges do offer almost everything that you'll need for PT requirements. Local community colleges offer inexpensive and convenient options to take necessary lower division classes. Obviously, Cal State Fullerton is known as a commuter school. We have many people coming from the greater Los Angeles or Orange County area. So if this is a hefty commute for you and you have a community college that is closer to your house, it might be more convenient and a little bit cheaper to go to a different community college, complete your courses, and transfer your units over, or just send the transcript to the PTCAS when you apply, and be able to get all of your classes done on a little bit easier schedule. Community college courses can usually be taken in tandem with Cal State Fullerton courses, and they do tend to offer a wider variety of winter and summer courses between semesters. In this way, you have a wider variety that you can take during summer, during winter. If you don't want to take them in tandem during the summer, maybe you go to Cal State Fullerton during your semester, and then you get one prereq done, one intersession per year, and that way by at the end of 4 years, you have most, if not all, of your prerequisites already completed, and you can finish and move on to the next step in the application process. Again, this option offers an easier way to complete your requirements within 4 years at minimal extra cost, because at community colleges you are paying per unit, which does tend to be less expensive than at a 4-year institution like Cal State Fullerton. Now, some possible cons of this option are unavailability of any upper division coursework. So that means that if you do have any requirements for your designated programs that requires a class to be 300 level or above, this is not an option at any sort of community college. You must take it at Cal State Fullerton. Additionally, managing coursework and commuting to different schools might be a hassle. So on one hand, it might be more convenient if you live closer to a community college than you do to Cal State Fullerton. But if you decide to take your classes in tandem, going to multiple locations, trying to manage coursework from 2 different schools might be a little bit more stressful and a little bit more difficult unless you are super organized. Additionally, it might be necessary to send additional transcripts. In a later video, we'll talk about the PTCAS transcript entry system, and that just means that you will have to put in multiple schools that you attended and make sure that you have the transcript sent from each school. Sending transcript does cost money, so you might end up having to pay a little bit more on the back end of sending these transcripts. It's usually not the making up the cost differential from community college classes to Cal State Fullerton classes in terms of finances, but it does mean that you are going to have to pay to have additional transcripts sent from multiple schools, and just make sure that all of those are on the same page. As well, community colleges for these general science series do still involve possible intro courses prior to the series, but they do accept the same placement exams. So similarly to we talked about the cons of the Cal State Fullerton option, you may still have to take an introductory chemistry course or biology course or whatever it may be. But if you take the chemistry placement course at Cal State Fullerton and then decide to go to a community college, they should still take the placement exam and allow you into the general course, which you can do again for a little bit cheaper, a little bit quicker. Now, the last option that we have is a little bit of a controversial one, but it does work in a certain time and place for certain people. This option would be online universities. So there are some online programs such as the University of New England, the University of Minnesota, I believe Southern California University of Health Sciences offers these, but they offer health science prerequisites that can be taken without intro courses and include all of the common prerequisite courses needed for most health programs. So basically, these programs are designed for people going into allied health professions, whether that be physical therapy, occupational therapy, physician assistant programs, veterinarian programs, et cetera, et cetera. that all tend to have a common core of prerequisite classes, and they allow you to do this on your own time on an online virtual system. And some of these courses may be virtual, synchronous, or they may be self-taught and self-paced depending on the program, but you can take them year round. You can usually start them at almost any time, and it does offer a little bit more convenient way to get some of these done. This may be a great option for those who are almost finished with your bachelor's degree and want to figure out how to get your classes ASAP, or any method in which you want to basically expedite this process of taking gap time after your degree in order to get these classes done as quickly as possible. Now, some possible cons to this option are a little bit heftier than the cons to other ones, but this is where your research and your communication with your programs are paramount. So the first con of this option is that many of these designated health science prereq programs do require you to have a bachelor's degree completed prior to enrollment, which means that you can't start these until you're done with your degree. That's why we don't usually offer this or encourage this to freshmen, but if you are a graduating senior, you have 1 or 2 semesters left, etc., you can hold off, finish your kines degree, and then as soon as you're done with your bachelor's degree, you can enter these programs. The second con is that they are quite expensive. You are paying for something that is going to be expeditious. It is going to make the process faster, but that does not come without cost. So this is the option that I personally used. I used the University of New England, and I am doing my chemistry courses online, but they cost about $1,600 each class, with the addition of lab materials and needing to buy webcams for proctored exams, etc. So these are quite expensive, much more so than Cal State Fullerton or community colleges. Additionally, some classes may be difficult to self-teach or to learn virtually, especially in the labs, because unless you are literally being taught by another human being online, some of these concepts and some of these classes are already known for being some of the harder courses, such as chemistry, such as physics. They tend to be ones that students already struggle with. And so if you are somebody that is really having a hard time with virtual learning, or you really don't think that you are going to be able to teach yourself a lot of these concepts, it may be quite difficult to get these done, and it may be worth going to a different institution or a community college or taking an extra semester to finish it to ensure that you get a better grade in that class. Because again, like we talked about in the last video, academics and your prerequisite GPA are very, very, very important, and we want to make sure that you are setting yourself up the best, not necessarily the fastest, in order to have the best application possible for these programs. The last con is that some DPT programs will not accept labs or lab-based courses that are completed online because they know, or they think that there is value in having a hands-on lab experience. So this is, again, where it's very, very important for you to figure out which courses are accepted through your university. And if they don't mention anything online, it is very important that you talk to an advisor, you email them, send them a question, asking whether or not they will accept these online courses before you start them, because we don't want you to be spending so much money and time just to come to find out that it's not accepted at the programs that you want it to be. So make sure you do that research first, reach out first, make sure that you know this is going to be accepted before you make this investment. Some bonus tips in terms of doing all of these prerequisite classes is, again, like I mentioned in the last video, the APTA/PTCAS website will tell you all of the acceptable options for courses. So look for courses that can be substituted. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask program advisors for different options or different exceptions. I was actually told by the University of New England online program by an advisor from the University of Colorado saying that here is what we really recommend for students that are in your position. We do accept them, etc., etc. But not all schools are going to accept that. So please don't be afraid to reach out and ask, hey, may I substitute this course for this? What is your best recommendation or option if I'm in this position? Figure out and just talk to them. They're there to help you. They are happy to answer any of your questions. And like I mentioned, some programs may accept extra biomechanics electives in place of physics. Sometimes you can use upper level science electives in place of general series, meaning if you took, for some reason, an upper level biology course, maybe you don't need to take 151 and 152 because they will accept the upper division ones. There's no guarantee for any of this that they'll accept any of the things other than what they have listed on their websites, but it's worth a shot because the worst thing that can happen is they say no and you're back to your original plan. And no harm has been done, no money's been lost, and you're back to square one. But it is worth a shot just to see if there is some way that you can do this a little bit easier, a little bit faster, a little bit better for you to make sure that, again, your application is the best that it can possibly be. In conclusion, you have many, many options to complete your classes that are required for PT programs in addition to your kinesiology coursework here at Cal State Fullerton. Prerequisite GPA is a very big part of the DPT application, and proper time and due diligence should be taken for these classes. These are not classes that you want to slack off in or that you want to just, again, do as quickly as possible. You want to make sure that you are putting quality work and getting a good grade in these classes so that it reflects the best on you. The best option to do any of these courses is the one that fits best into your timeline, your schedule, your finances, etc., because there's nobody that knows that better than you. So please make sure that all of these options are on the table for you. Please make sure that you are choosing the best one for you. Lastly, these classes take time. Again, we are asking for another 40-ish units on top of the 120 that you are already doing for your bachelor's degree. So plan ahead and make sure that you stick to your timeline as best as possible to make sure that you're not overloading yourself, you're not rushing through these classes, but you're also not taking extra years and extending this process longer than it is necessary. This is already a very long process. You're investing so much time and money and bandwidth of your own mind into these classes and into these programs. We want to make sure that it is worthwhile and, again, that it fits best for you and helps reflect best for your application. This concludes part 2 of our prerequisites for the DPT video series. Stay tuned for video 5, in which we will talk about preparation for the other prerequisites and requirements for different